Iran and Israel obviously dominating the headlines once again this morning on a global scale. Time to head back to the Hill this morning and talk about what's on the legislative docket. And joining us once again this morning is Virginia Senator Tim Kaine. Senator, I always appreciate you joining us. Thanks so very much. Listen, I'm going to get right to it because if I look over my shoulder right now, I see on every network news show at this moment the Secretary of Defense just absolutely hammering the media on these supposed leaks of information as to what the true extent of the damage was in Iran. You serve on both the Armed Forces and the Foreign Relations Committee. What are you hearing? Because trust me, they're not exempting some members of Congress from being under the microscope now either.
The Secretary is upset because there was some classified information that was available for review by members of our committees, and somebody who looked at it leaked it. I was on my way down to the SCIF to read the material, and the reporters were already asking me about things that were in the material. Look, I think the reason the Secretary is mad is not because of the leak, it's because the President feels embarrassed. He said in the aftermath of this bombing over the weekend that the Iranian nuclear program was completely obliterated. A number of sources are saying that that's not the case. Was it damaged? Yes, it was. But obliterated is a pretty big claim, and a lot of the intel, not only the U.S. intel, but from others, international organizations, Israel, suggest it was damaged but not obliterated. And the President's embarrassed by that. We're going to have a hearing with the Secretary General Kaine and others this afternoon, and we have a whole lot of questions. But my biggest question is this, Steve. Why would we want one person to send our sons and daughters to war? The Constitution says we shouldn't be at war without a vote of Congress. I have a war powers resolution that we'll have a vote on either later today or tomorrow that just basically says no war against Iran without a vote of Congress. And I hope to get my colleagues to join me in that. Without you yourself, Senator, breaching any of that confidential information, is there anything else that you can share about potentially the impact of the strikes? Just that it was significant, and I'll just say the public reporting by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the one international organization that actually has folks on the ground in Iran and other countries with nuclear weapons to monitor any kind of activity around nuclear weaponry. They've said it was significant. So what exactly that means, hard to say. We'll get some answers this afternoon, I'm sure. But the most important thing is success would be sitting down at a table and negotiating a resolution, which we had done in 2015. We had a working diplomatic deal that was limiting Iran's nuclear ambitions. Israel worked hard to convince President Trump to tear up the deal. Iran then raced forward with more centrifuges and more enrichment. They were being controlled by the deal. So what we understand is a diplomatic deal works even better than a bombing campaign to limit a nuclear program. We should try to find a diplomatic answer, and I'm happy that the President has said that he's going to have discussions with the Iranians next week to do so. I want to try to get into more questions quickly, one on this, and then we'll move on, Senator, in a short amount of time. Yep. But one of the other fallout points of this is now the administration is saying, listen, we might limit some of this classified information even from members of Congress. You said you were going down to the SCIF to look at it. What impact might that have on how Congress is able to work? Well, Steve, they're already limiting the information to Democrats. They didn't brief any of the Democratic leadership on armed services, intel, appropriations, or foreign relations about the attack on Saturday. They briefed Republicans, not Democrats. Donald Trump is turning war into a partisan thing, and he's also turning it into sort of a comical thing. He posted a Bomb Iran music video yesterday on the president's own website. Who would treat war so cavalierly? I got an awful lot of military families in Virginia. War is not a joking matter to them. They're really worried about their family members deployed in the Middle East or who might deploy in the Middle East. That's why this decision has to be made by Congress, not just the President. Sure. Last thing I have to get in real quick, Senator. Obviously, everybody has to come together on the Hill now if you want to get this whole bill passed, and I know there's been a lot of back and forth. Are the votes there in the Senate right now? And if not, how close are you? Well, when you say, Steve, everybody has to come together, this is a bill that the Republicans are putting together with no input from Democrats. And so we're waiting for when they think they have the votes on their side to start this. My gut tells me that we'll likely start taking up the Senate version of the reconciliation bill tomorrow and maybe work on it into Saturday, potentially over the weekend. Then it will go back to the House because it's going to look different than the House version. I'm most worried about cuts to Medicaid, cuts to SNAP programs, cuts to good jobs in the energy sector that will raise people's energy bills. And we're certainly going to be offering amendments and try to make the bill better.
All right, Senator Tim Kaine, I always appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time this morning and for joining us.
Glad to.
Thanks very much. 8:22. We'll take a short break, and we'll have a little Lights, Camera, McCarthy coming up after this.